when delegation becomes default. Automation arrives first as convenience, then as default. Over time, the question shifts from, can this be delegated, to why would anyone do this by hand? When delegation becomes the default path, the skill that disappears first is not execution, but judgment. The practiced ability to notice errors, verify outputs, and understand consequences. Consider a generic workflow. A person once performed a task end-to-end, learning its edge cases through friction, small failures, corrections, and repetition. Then an automated component is introduced. The immediate incentive is clear: time saved, fewer steps, less visible effort, and a clean metric for throughput. In organizations, that incentive is amplified by measurement. Speed is easy to count. Careful verification is harder to observe, so it becomes a weak proxy for quality. The system begins to reward the appearance of completion. A constraint appears immediately. Attention is finite. If the automated tool handles the doing, the person's attention reallocates to triage, coordination, and volume. That allocation is not a moral flaw. It is a capacity limit. Under that constraint, the practice hours that once built internal models of how the task behaves are reduced. Less practice means fewer calibrated intuitions, fewer expectations about what normal looks like, fewer mental tests for plausibility. This sets up a feedback loop. As practice declines, confidence in manual capability erodes. As manual capability erodes, the perceived cost of doing anything manually rises. As the perceived cost rises, delegation becomes even more attractive, and the loop tightens. The system behaves as designed. Incentives push delegation, constraints reduce rehearsal. The feedback loop converts convenience into dependency. A second-order effect follows. Audit capacity shrinks. Auditing is not merely checking a box. It is the ability to interrogate an output with domain-aware questions. That ability depends on having done the work often enough to know which questions matter. Without that, verification becomes superficial. Did the system produce something? Replaces is this consistent, complete, and appropriate for the context. Trade-offs appear and they are real. Automation can reduce routine errors and expand access to capabilities once scarce. It can also remove the apprenticeship pathway that produced competent reviewers. The trade-off is between efficiency now and resilience later. A fast pipeline with thin verification versus a slower pipeline with thicker understanding. Another trade-off is between standardized outputs and contextual judgment. Standardization reduces variation, but it can also hide rare cases until they become failures with higher cost. Examples are everywhere in generic systems. In a data pipeline, automated cleaning may silently discard outliers. Without familiarity with raw inputs, a reviewer may not recognize that clean is also missing. In a report generator, a plausible narrative may be assembled from partial signals. Without practice in assembling the report by hand, a reviewer may not see that the conclusion rests on a misread assumption. In an approval workflow, automated routing may optimize for speed. Without experience and exceptions, people may accept the route as truth. In each case, execution is delegated, and the ability to challenge the output weakens. The dependency loop is not simply people become lazy. It is a structural pattern. Incentives prefer delegation, constraints reduce practice, and reduced practice weakens audit, which increases reliance on the automated output as an authority. The failure mode is quiet. The system still runs, but fewer participants can explain, dispute, or repair it when it drifts. This mechanism reveals a value choice disguised as productivity. A culture that treats delegation as default often treats attention as a resource to be spent only on new work, not on understanding old work. The result is a narrowing of responsibility. Individuals feel accountable for moving items through a system, while the system becomes the de facto owner of correctness. Meaning erodes in a particular way. When people do not understand the work they oversee, they cannot reliably distinguish signal from noise. They must accept proxies, dashboards, status labels, confidence scores, and polished outputs. Proxies are not dishonest, they are incomplete. Yet the more attention is trained on proxies, the less attention remains for the underlying reality. Competence becomes a matter of operating the interface rather than grasping the domain. In that condition, trust shifts. Trust is no longer grounded in shared understanding. It is grounded in procedural compliance. The system says it is done. This is a stable arrangement until an exception occurs. When exceptions become frequent enough, a deeper question appears. Not whether automation is good or bad, but what kind of humans the system is shaping, operators of throughput, or stewards who can still recognize when the machine is wrong. Consider a single task that has become almost entirely delegated in your environment, and examine what would be required to audit it without the automation. Name the assumptions the tool makes, name the signals you would check, and notice which of those checks are no longer practiced or even remembered. Delegation saves effort, but it also spends competence. Clarity requires restraint.